Hey, everybody. Hope you guys are fantastic. My name is Dr. Brett Brimhall. Excited to spend a little bit of time with you guys tonight. And we're going to talk about something that's super important, in my opinion, and hopefully set the stage to help people have success in ways maybe they haven't had it before. So just briefly, I'm a chiropractor, functional medicine chiropractor. I've been practicing 26 years, but I've been teaching physicians since 1995. I was trying to add up the other day how many seminars I've taught, and it's in the thousands at this point in time. And it's just because I was put in a position when I was younger to be around my dad, who was what we call the pathogenic learner, just constantly learning everything he could to help other people because he wanted to be helped the way he was. And so that's the stage of life that I've been in a really long time. And I've watched over the last few years people starting these new medications when it comes to weight loss. And I have to admit that I didn't really I've never wanted to focus my practice on weight loss. And I think part of it comes from my sister, Shara's on here with me, and I have an older sister, and she passed away from an eating disorder when she was in her early 20s. I was 18 at the time. And so I never wanted to focus about weight loss because of just how difficult of a conversation that can be. And I didn't want people to hyper focus on that. So I never really have always focused on how to help people get healthy and stay healthy. But we're going to talk specifically about not only weight loss, but just being healthy. And I want you to kind of throw in the chat if you've ever felt frustrated. You just throw one frustrated with the results you're getting when it comes to weight loss, or maybe that you've tried stuff and it just doesn't seem to work, or that you feel like you have no willpower. Like maybe that you've tried and it just doesn't seem like maybe it's just not in the cards for me. Like, have you felt that way? Um, what I'm what I will give you today is we're gonna go through some absolute honest things, and I'm gonna be very transparent with you of what we're gonna learn, and you'll have a different stage to play with that'll help you understand what it is that you can do. So we're gonna talk about the metabolic truths and what's called cellular activation. But and Sheridan, can you guys see that? That a
Ye-
yes?
Yes.
Okay. So my intention behind this whole thing, guys, is that really for us to focus, why do people struggle with weight loss and despite their trying? And what I want you to do is I don't want you to get mad at yourself anymore. And that's not a game that we're going to play. We're going to look at like how do we set yourself up for success when really you've been playing a game that you didn't really understand you were playing. So we're going to understand what the metabolic blockers are, know what really works, get a clarity and plan of going forward, and hopefully gain you hope again, but give you the right benchmarks to look for. But I want you to understand that we're in this situation not as individuals, not even in a community, not even the nation, but in the world, because there are people that do not want you to be healthy, and it started a long time ago before many of us were alive. And this kind of goes back. I'm not going to go into like conspiracy. I just want to show you why it's such a struggle and why it's not your fault, but it is your opportunity to understand the game that you're playing. And if you want to play to win, you got to understand who the other side is. Okay. And it's not an individual. It just is. So back in 1963 is kind of when this began. The tobacco industry started buying up food industries. One of the first purchases was Hawaiian Punch. That's when they started into the food industry in the 85 to 80s and 90s. That's when they bought Nabisco. Philip Morris acquired Nabisco, Kraft and General Foods. And the late 1980s to 2000s, they started doing all these things to make the food hyper palatable. So I think most of us would admit when you look and watch somebody smoke, like it doesn't look healthy, but it's highly addictive. So is it possible that they took their chemists, which is not impossible, it has happened, and they've tried to make foods taste better so you'd buy more of them? Okay, so from basically the 1960s to present, this has been going on between in 2010 to 2020s. These ultra processed foods are linked to diabetes, there's such thing as diabetes, obesity, diabetes, metabolic syndrome in kids and adults. And check this out. Just last year, 2024, 2025, lawsuits accused food giants of marketing addictive ultra processed foods to kids. So if you think about it, that's a long time. We're talking about since the 60s that this has been going on inside our world. And we just think it's normal to eat these foods, but they are a drug because you crave them and it alters your biochemistry. So just know these ultra-processed foods, they're engineered with sugars, fat, salt to override your satiety. So that willpower thing that you don't think you have is because it's messed this up. Okay. And because of it, it's this giant epidemic that we have of obesity, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, because this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is more prevalent now than it was when people drink alcohol, that it comes from these ultra-processed foods. There's tons of evidence that ties this into how it affects people's learning, behavior, their gut-brain access, and it's kind of targeted around this hormone known as the GLP-1, glucogen-like peptide 1. Now, this is the hormone that when you have a healthy gut, your body produces this hormone. So all these things you've been watching over the last several years of these medications that have been really successful helping people lose weight are a lot of them are targeted at this hormone. So this hormone is made in your gut, but these medications are basically what's called, they mimic the hormone. So your body's not making it. So, and when it's not making it, guess what? You crave foods. You can't turn it off. You don't have willpower over food. Okay. So they make these drugs are made to act like that hormone. So that's why people can have success losing weight because they're not hungry anymore because that hormone be given from the outside. But once you come off of it, then the cravings come back. Now, here's the fun part with that. Your body, through cellular activation, which means getting your body to do what it was designed to do, by adding fiber, clean protein, and real foods, it can counteract that cycle. All right. So just understand, this is the game you're up against. Processed food shuts down this hormone production. We have to rebalance this hormone and other hormones for your body to function ideally. Understand this is a revolution where we've got to understand the game we're playing, and I want you to play to win, which means you can't always just trust what your tongue wants. All right, so we got to understand, like, this is the game, it's real, and I want you to have the tools and the resources to do it. But most people don't know this yet, or they don't want to admit it yet. But if you want to be successful long term, this is the game you're playing, and I want you to win. Most games are won and lost before the game ever starts because they understand the enemy they're fighting. All right, so understand this hormone. We're going to come back to this here. When this hormone works, and I understand you'll have less cravings, you'll be able to have more control. Your body will start burning, but there's more to just that. So we're gonna shift some things here, and here's what I want you to know. I know this has never happened, but like, have you ever woke up super happy and you walked in the bathroom and you stepped on this flat little thing on the floor and this number popped up, and all of a sudden now you're sad, mad, or pissed off, or angry, or whatever else? I'm going back to bed because I've been working on this and it's not changing. So we're looking at this number on the scale and it didn't say what we wanted it to say. And so now we're mad. I want you to understand that number on the scale is weight. What that means is that's only measuring one parameter of health, and it's only weight. So when you gain or lose weight, I want you to understand, like, you got to understand, am I losing muscle? Am I losing fat? Am I losing bone? Am I losing ligaments, or am I gaining those? Because it's very, very different. So if you want to be healthy, the older we get, the more muscle mass you lose. The more muscle mass you lose, the slower your metabolism is. So if you want to be healthy, if you want to be metabolic active, if you want to have energy, so I want you to ask, very clear, even write this down. What do you really, really want? And so the old way of looking at things, we look at just the scale. We'll look at calorie counting and maybe overload and toxin inflammation. We're going to talk about more than that. We're going to come back to really understand, like, what is it that you got to get the body doing it differently so you can have the success you want. So I want you to really kind of ask yourself the question. And at the end, I'm going to throw a couple of things up here for you to look at that hopefully will give you some mind prompts on to take a bigger picture. Dr. Casey Means, if you haven't heard of her, she wrote a book called Good Energy. She said, energy is a process, not a number. Health and disease is a process, not a destination. So we're going to shift that process. So here's what's really going on. The bottom line, the core issue is that if your cells do not communicate properly, just think of it like a relationship. If in a relationship, if you can communicate really good, the relationship thrives. if your cells cannot communicate, because basically a cell makes up a tissue makes up an organ makes up a system makes up a human. At the core of this, if your cells can't communicate, if your cell itself can't communicate with itself and the cell can't communicate with other cells, we get dysfunction. Dysfunction leads to dis-ease, to eventually disease. So at the foundation is this process is communication. So here's what happens. If your cells, if you feel like, hey, somebody's like hijacked my body, like seriously, like we are not playing well together. It could be tied to stress, which is where cortisol comes in. We've all heard about this cortisol, hold weight around the middle. Maybe it's tied to my insulin resistance. Well, it can be because insulin is a communicating molecule that tells your body to either store fat or burn it. Okay, it can be tied to poor sleep. Poor sleep messes with your melatonin. When you mess with your melatonin, you can't sleep, which messes with insulin, which messes with your cortisol. Toxic burden. I know none of you would do this, and no one would ever drink one of these things. Okay, my Red Bull, okay, which I've had for probably 10 years, right? That creates toxins. Though there's things you actually put in your body, like things you don't know about that are in our foods. There are drinks that we put in our body, but there are also air that you breathe outside here, air that you breathe, other things like that that actually put more toxic load on your cells. So think of toxins, think of excess cortisol, think of insulin resistance, think of inflammation, poor gut function. Think of it as this big crowd that you're in. And the more noise that's there, it's harder to communicate with the person next to you, which is your cells. Now, what we do at LifeVantage, and that's how you guys all got here, is we are the activation company. We focus at getting cellular communication correct and removing those things that are damaging it. And it's not rocket science, but it is sciencey, scientific, and it is tested. So here's the behaviors that will actually make your metabolism worse. And I cannot control these on you, but I can give you tools and resources. Poor sleep. If you sleep poor, it's going to damage your, it's going to have an effect upon your metabolism. High levels of sugar, and that could be fruit sugars even, but especially processed sugars. Skipping meals. Like you can intentionally fast, which had benefit at the right time, but skipping meals. Stress. Sedentary lifestyle. All right. So what you can do is you can shift habits and you can activate your cellular processes. Now, by doing that, and each one of these habits, if you shift them, actually activate different processes in your body. So I want to go both directions. All right. So when you go and you try to take in supplements, all right, and I'm actually going to put I'm going to be a little more extreme in this. If you give somebody a medication, let's just call it no matter how, I'm 51 in a few days. You'll see diets come and go, and there are medications that are kind of like supplements in the sense of if you don't have it, that you won't get the benefit. Okay, so you do need supplements, but if you're using a supplement and it's not actually getting the body to make the change long term or activating the natural cellular process, that's a problem. So in the natural, we talk about supplements like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C. You do need those things. You got to get them from your diet, or you have to take them. Okay, because if you don't have them, the reason why they're vitamins is because you cannot make them. Okay, and then there's cellular activation, which is actually turning on the processes in the body to do the thing. So there's key cellular processes. I'm gonna hit a couple real quick. The NRF2 process, that's for inflammation. NRF1 process is for energy production. Sirtuin process, that's what's called NAD. That's the one for cellular communication, what's called autophagy, which that's the recycle bin. All right. So your level of wellness, your level of metabolism, your level of how well you sleep, how much energy you have, how fast you recover from exercise and activity is dependent upon how well you control inflammation, how much energy your body cellulars can actually make, and how well those cells communicate. These are the three main pathways. Okay, the three main pathways. Okay, and I'm going to give you a little questionnaire you can do here at the end that you can figure out if you're lacking one of theirs. But here's how we activate metabolism. We're going to reduce inflammation. We're going to boost mitochondrial function, get the gut to function ideally. We're going to increase our sirtuins. We're going to improve our sleep, mood, and energy. And then we're going to activate the GLP-1 hormone. We can do this through foods. We can do this through sleep. We can do this through the right types of fasting. We can do this through the right term of activating nutrients. You choose you. For me, I'm going to choose both. Okay. But we're not going to measure it anymore with that damn flat thing on the floor. Okay. Apologize, but I really want to be clear on that. Right. I really want you to be super, super clear. You cannot measure success without measuring the right things. So if success to you is this little flat thing on the floor without any of the parameters, it's going to be really, really hard to measure success. So if you're going to use some things for measurement, I want you to have some subjective ones like, okay, how is my energy? And that's both mental energy and physical energy. What are my cravings like? Like, how well do I manage stress? What are my moods like? Like, how well do I regulate when I'm in stress? What are my sleep? What's my sleep like? I want you to subjectively measure that. I'm going to give you a form you guys can click here in the chat here in a minute and pull it up and have it. Then I want you to have objective measurements. Now, one of the big studies that was done when we released this GLP, natural GLP product that Life Energy created, that took multiple years to create, is one of the things we measured was these things here: waist size, fasting insulin, because we didn't want to just look at the scale, but we also didn't measure it every day. Like I really hope that I'm not judged by my wife and kids every day, because I have some pretty crappy days, right? But I do hope that I'm making improvement month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year. And I would say the vast majority of people that are at a weight or an energy level or a mental state that they don't like took them many times, months, if not years or even decades to reach. So be kind to yourself and let's move the needle back the other way, because you can metabolically be older than your age. Okay, actually, where your organ cells and tissues are older than your age, and you can actually be metabolically younger than your chronological age. Absolutely true. So I want you to look at measuring things like waist size, and you can do some of these tests: fasting insulin, C-reactive protein. You can measure what's called heart rate variability and strength. You can measure those other things, not just the flat thing. But if you are going to do a scale, get a smart scale. And a smart scale is a scale that measures weight, but breaks up into components where we look at lean muscle mass, fat mass, so it's and visceral fat. So we're looking at where the weight would be being lost from, because I've watched people, and I want you to really honestly think about people that you know that have lost a lot of weight in the last couple of years, and you look at them and you know they're using a synthetic medication. You can see it. They're weaker. The way their faces is shaped. They're not as strong as they used to be. They're more tired. Yes, they look skinnier, but at what price? We don't have all the answers here at Life Advantage. I promise you, I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you, if I'm going to move the needle in the right way, I want to make sure I'm tracking the right things. So if you're going to use a scale, use a smart scale. Whether you use medications or you use anything, no help whatsoever, track the right things. Because here's a really bad thing. Watch people lose weight, yet their body fat percentage went up. I watch people lose weight, and some of the weight they lost was bone mass. Okay, none of that is healthy. So just keep in mind, these are things I want you to look for, and I'll give you a tracker you can use. All right. Then be honest with yourself and say, I'm going to do this the right way. Know what's going to happen in a process. So for me, it might look like if I'm going to do a 90-day reset, I'm going to do some baseline stuff with activating the right nutrients, get the right nutrients into my body, focus on my gut inflammation, then work on balancing blood sugar and hormones, and work on my sleep and stress cycles, supporting my mitochondria, and then long-term reset. Assess, reset. Okay, so I'm gonna shift something really quick. I'm gonna share something else. Okay. And if you guys pop questions in the chat, I promise we'll try to get to those here in a little bit. But I've created a few things with you that I think will be helpful. And I actually honestly want you to do some of these assessments as we go through this process, because it's really not rocket science. But I can promise you that if you can use some of these key cellular activators, it will make a difference, both in how you feel and how you function and your long-term goals. You use those while you change your habits. Like, please work with changing your habits, because I don't want to lose weight for a minute nor do I want to improve my metabolism for a minute. I want it to be long-term. Okay, super important for me and hopefully for you as well. So let me share my screen and hopefully this works nicely. Okay. So this right here, and I'll throw these in the chat here in a minute. Okay. Can you see that? It says good energy tracker. All right. If you go to caseandmeans.com, you can look this up. I like this because this is going to help you look at and help you have some ways to start moving things in the right way. If you haven't read her book, I don't make money on her by any means, probably giving her money by doing this, but she does a really good job of setting things up and helping you set some strategies up. And you look at her, when she says establish your baseline, look what she says. She talks about blood work, right? Real parameters of health. And so I'll throw this in the chat here in a minute. You guys can click on it and do it, but you can have that. You can also look it up, but I want you to have that as a tracker to go through, because she also goes through here of things you can start like doing to really assess and track yourself, but also like other things that are in your environment that you don't realize are absolutely hammering you. Okay. So I'll pop that in the chat here in a minute. You guys can pull that up. Okay. All right. We'll hold the questions to the end. All right. All right. So let me show you another one here. All right. This is one that I'm going to encourage you guys all to do, whether you're doing LifeVantage or not, or haven't yet. If you're looking for tools and resources, this is something I'll use. If you want to just kind of work on some of your health goals, you'll see you can check each one of these, whether you want to increase your energy, sleep quality, and this will help you kind of focus in on maybe some of the products that would be helpful for you. Okay, so I'll put this in the chat. So if you're a consultant, you want to use this as just a tool to kind of help guide people through the process of what products might be helpful, you have that. Okay, so I'm gonna let you guys do that later, but I want to show you this one. This is one that okay, this is the one I want you to have, because I want you to start thinking about like, and I started going through this list here, and I want you to think here. So even take this assessment with me really quick. Do you skip meals and do you restrict your, do you have restricted dieting? Okay. What's the quality of your sleep? Do you sleep poorly or irregular sleep patterns? Do you have a sedentary lifestyle? Are you always in chronic stress, or you feel like you don't have really good stress management skills? Do you frequently consume processed or fake foods? And when I say frequently, is that multiple times a week, once a week, maybe, but multiple times a week. High sugar intake or sweetened beverages, and ignoring your gut health or having poor gut health. You have toxic exposure, so you're drinking out of plastic consistently, you're around lateral electromagnetic radiation that you don't really understand, or you actually work in a toxic environment. Do you drink adequate amounts of water?
Brett,
Yep.
we're not seeing the list. We're just seeing the PDF. It's not opening.
Well, that's not nice. Let me see if it'll open here. Try that. Did it open that time?
No.
No.
Good. I don't want you guys to see it. I don't really have it. It's a joke. Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw these. I'm going to actually throw these in the chat here in just a second once I stop the recording. But I'm going to give you these checklists that hopefully, what I want you to use is I want you to have these to kind of go through and say, okay, I'm going to work on this one this month. Like I'm going to really work on improving my sleep over the next couple of months to where I feel like I've got into a good routine of that. And you say, you know what, this month, then after you kind of get that master's, you know what, I really want to work on developing some skills when it comes to like becoming more mindful. So for me, one like so before, the one I choose to do activation first. Okay. Like I know I'm gonna do my thing, my body. I can be 100% with that, and I'm working with my behaviors. Am I back?
You're
Okay.
muted.
Where did I cut off at?
You had just said you were going to put the PDFs in the chat for us, and then it got
Man,
really choppy. Sorry, buddy.
you know what? This is just so you guys know that this technology, which is amazing, is a lot like cell communication. When the cells are communicating, like everything kind of works like it's supposed to, right? And there's no miscommunication, right? When it comes to cells that can't communicate, is what happens. So I just wanted you to experience that. You're welcome. All right. So what I'll do, let me throw a couple of these things in the chat, but let me kind of finish. Let me kind of summarize a couple of things here, and I'll throw something in the chat, okay? And I'll throw all those things for you, and then you can, and we'll stay on long enough where you guys can copy and paste those. All right, let me show you. I'm going to come back to something and see if I can share one last thing with you guys. Can you guys see that, the 90-day reset?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay,
We can see it.
perfect. Okay, all right. So whether you choose a 90-day or whatever, I just want you to know, like, give it time to process, okay? Because I know, like, I look at some of the people on here, like, I know some of you got great results with activation, and then you added other things in, like the GLP-1 system. But I want to give you a little perspective. So one of the studies that came out with the mind-body system, the study was done with a 12-week study. And when we launched this product back in October, people were really, really excited because they saw stories like this, right? And so I know many of us, like, we look at somebody else's results and we're like, we want that result, okay? Whatever it might be, okay? Respect the journey. And so when we did this study with a 12-week study, and this is the things that they found in this 12-week study. Now, it was 12 weeks for a reason. Right? It's 12 weeks because the body needs to be given time to go through those processes. And what happened, there was an average weight loss of 9 pounds in 8 weeks, up to 25 pounds in 12 weeks. So the most weight that was lost was 25 pounds in 12 weeks, which is amazing, but that was the absolute most. But the average of all these people was like that 9 pounds in 8 weeks. Understand the majority of the results that we were actually looking for were actually based on this right here. The benefits of helping you feel fuller longer, cuts cravings, quiet the food noise, and helping to maintain blood sugar levels. But in the study, you'll look over here, it says 85%, 82% of those that did this, they took back control of the relationship with food. So I want you to think about, like, have you ever been ticked off at yourself for eating something you know you shouldn't? All right. 95% had decreased sugar cravings. Right. 96% of those people just chose to eat smaller meals because they just felt more satisfied and full. 85% felt less hungry. 90% ate less at meals. 85% now said they ate for health and not emotions. But we looked at parameters like not only like did we lose weight, but we said what percentage of people lost muscle mass? 100% of people that did a study kept their muscle mass. Okay, there was an up to 5% of total body fat loss, but up to 27% of visceral fat loss. You're seeing out there right now, even these medications are being touted as organ protective, because if you can change that visceral fat, that's where the organ health improvement comes from. Like, understand, like, this hormone, if you feel like you struggled in any of these departments, it's because this one's off. So if we can find ways to activate this pathway, then you can start feeling like you have control back over food. But understand the game you're playing is you're playing against a field where there's a lot of things in your environment that are also affecting you. But it was a 12-week study because you got to give the body time to make the change, no matter what that is, whether that's diet, whether that's exercise, and you have to track the right things. If you're only looking at the scale, you might be frustrated because the number hadn't changed, but if you looked at the visceral fat, it was probably changing. The inch loss was probably changing. Your energy might have been changing, but if you're not addressing that or looking at that, you're going to miss the boat. Okay, because I truly believe there's a lot of magic in our bodies, but we have to turn that magic back on and also give it the time it needs to be successful. Okay, so here's my ask before I stop this portion, and I'll stop the recording. Okay, here's my ask. Wherever you're at, whatever your health goals are, write them out. Okay. And as you go through those checklists of behaviors, look at the ones you want to make some changes on, focus on one. If you haven't started your activation story yet by applying some of the activation products with LifeVantage, whether it's for regulating inflammatory cascade, whether it's to improve your body's mitochondrial function or to improve your cellular communication or gut health, decide which ones fit you, and then track them, but do them consistently for time. If you'll do that and you give the body the chance, it'll be easier to make the behavioral changes you've been trying to make for some of us for decades. But I want you to make sure you're tracking the right things. Okay, we have a deal on that? Okay, better. I'm gonna agree yes. Okay. All right. So what I'm gonna do real quick, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pause the recording. Okay, where you're gonna ask me some things, but I'm gonna pop in the thread here.